Alors, je vous demande de prendre place assez rapidement. On va commencer right on time, parce qu'on va finir right on time aussi.
So we're just about to start right on time, because we finish on time. Just waiting for the last people to sit down, and the interpreter will catch his breath.
Voilà. Il est 11h, on commence.
11 on the dot. Good morning, everyone. I'm so happy to be here. My name is Sarah Schoenfeld, and I'm in charge of international relations for a French network called Comité 21. I will explain what my structure is, and I will introduce the speakers for this morning, who will present the way they took ownership of the objectives of sustainable development and how they contribute each through the core businesses to reaching the sustainable development objectives. Comité 21 was invited by the World Forum for Responsible Economy to moderate this session. Comité 21 is a multi-player network, which is the leading one, actually, in France, dedicated to sustainable development. What we are is a platform with 400 members spread over 4 sections. We have major global companies, intermediate or small companies, even startup companies. This is our first section. Then we have local authorities, federating départements, cities, small villages. And our third section is associations and NGOs working in France or internationally. And our fourth and last section of members is academics, research centers, and universities. We were created back in 1995, so 23 years that we've been putting around the same table all those players who are not necessarily used to working together and put them around the table of sustainable development. At Comité 21, I like to use this metaphor for a marriage to last. Both partners should look in the same direction. Same thing for sustainable development. All components of the society, companies, local authorities, scientists, all look into the same direction, so it becomes reality to transform our economic models. So first in history and then leading member in terms of members, 400 organizations. And since 2016, since we adopted the Sustainable Development Objective, the whole of our activities are double. First, we raise the awareness. We tell them what are the Sustainable Development Objectives, why they're important, and then we equip them so they can integrate sustainable development in the pre-existing strategy of sustainable development. So for local authority, we talk about Agenda 21, climate plan, regional scheme for the equality of territories, and for companies we talk about CSR policies, societal commitment, and then for higher education systems we talk about other types of plans. So those pre-existing situations, we help the stakeholders integrate and review their development strategy in terms of sustainable development with this formidable tool that are the Sustainable Development Objectives, SDGs. So we are themes on food, agriculture, poverty, sanitization, electricity. I'm not going to mention them all, but we have 16 sectoral ones and a 17th one, which is more of a cross-cutting methodological one, which focuses on the way we are going to reach the 16 others. This conference is going to focus on the way companies take ownership or not of these tools that are the SDGs. At Comité 21, what we hammer on the same message, which is to say SDGs are not something that we should do extra. It's not on top of everything that you do. Everything that you were doing in terms of societal commitment. This tool helps you filter all your projects and your strategy through the SDGs like a sieve, where you filter through the Sustainable Development Objectives what stays there and what went through and forced to the ground are all those you haven't thought about when you elaborated that. And I'm taking an example. Let's say Veolia. They do water and sanitization, wastewater treatment. They have identified the SDG. Like they could have impact on equal opportunity for men and women, on reducing inequality, or the SDGs on decent jobs. So SDGs are something we should demystify, and it's a tool that helps you give you a 360-degree vision of what sustainable development should be, what your policy should be, and maybe you've thought about a couple of impacts, but maybe not all. And this helps you. We have an issue with translation. Santiago? Santiago, can you hear us? No? So SDGs are a tool that help you go faster in your strategy. And there are two issues with this when you take ownership of SDGs when a company like us. The first one is to make it a picking, so choosing your SDG and not the others. So we have to keep in mind that this new Agenda 2030, the 17 SDGs are called Agenda 2030. It was negotiated with many countries in the world, a lot of representatives, and this is the first time that a universal roadmap is adopted by all the countries in the world. And this roadmap identifies 17 interdependent SDGs, and all the organizations in the world, all the companies in the world, all the local authorities, associations and citizens, whether individuals or legal entities, can ask the questions of how they contribute reaching fulfilling the SDGs. You have 17 objectives, or goals, as we call them, and these are translated into 169 targets. So we have an action to encourage water and sanitization. Of course, there is one on reducing poverty. When you have an action on decent jobs and employing women, we have an impact on the employment. So all these SDGs are all interconnected. So it's not a matter of choosing one that you're going to contribute to, but raise the contribution to all SDGs. Even if some of them in your core business, if they're not including, some of the SDGs are not a priori impacted by you, you should raise the question how you can have even a minute contribution to this Sustainable Development Goal. The second pitfall, if you wish, is what I call the washing, the ODD, or rather SDG washing. It would consist in that before I had a project, like I'm an NGO, I have a project of, let's say, maintaining biodiversity in a specific area in Asia and Vietnam. And since I have a project on biodiversity, I can stick hashtag SDG 15. Well, no, you cannot color your project and strategies with the SDG themes. You should really think, what about my biodiversity project? I should run it through the filter of the SDG number 15 and to see to which target my project meets, which targets my project doesn't fulfill, and maybe redefine my biodiversity project, redefine its ambition so that it can contribute to certain targets I haven't thought of, maybe, when I imagine my project initially. So it is truly using this tool. At Comité 21, as I said, the whole of our activities are oriented towards raising the awareness and equipping our members so they can take ownership of these and go further in sustainable development. And I invite you to download a report available in French and English. And it's a report that gives a snapshot at a certain time of the level of ownership of SDGs in French society. This is focused player by player. Do associations, local authorities, trade unions know about the SDGs? First level of ownership. Do I know the SDGs? And then do I use them to go further in my development? So we'll not make the summary of all the players. We're here to focus on the companies. But here I will introduce the panel members straight away. We don't have any French ones. This is why I say a couple of words about the French companies. French companies, there is a gap between the major companies and the smaller companies in the way they take ownership of SDGs. We had done the same report in 2017, and actually this is the second one. The 2017 report said that ownership was not acquired. Then we can see there's a turning point. We have the major companies listed on the stock exchange that are starting to think about the way they could contribute to the SDGs. But SME is getting more difficult for them because simply they don't have a dedicated team for sustainable development. I mean, all major companies have about 10 people teams to look into sustainable development, but SMEs is extra. It should be done in addition to the business. This is why it's getting complicated for them to think about how they could contribute to the SDGs. And I really invite you to look up that report, but also look at the study which came out last September for the anniversary of the SDGs, but that's the 25th of September, 2015. So every year, at that date, we celebrate the anniversary of the SDGs. And for the third anniversary in 2018, BL Evolution, a firm of consultants, got out the second study, first one in 2017, second study on the level of ownership of the SDGs by French companies. And they also observed that it's making progress, but there is still room for improvement and incredible more things to do. So to illustrate the way diverse companies, we have a company in charge of chocolate, others with electricity meters, and others produce and distribute eggs. Yes, eggs. We'll see in these three companies how they took hold of the SDGs. So I will start first with José Benitez, who's on your right, is in charge of Nutri Huevos. based in Paraguay, and you produce and distribute eggs. Your company was created in the 70s, if I'm not mistaken, and you employ over 300 employees. In 2015, just for the year that the SDGs were adopted, you launched an initiative called Nutrihuevos Micro-Franchises. Could you tell us more about this initiative, and especially the way this initiative has pushed you to rethink your CSR policy with SDGs?
First one, I have to talk about the current situation in Paraguay, because 2 in every 10 people in Paraguay live in poverty. That's represented 26.5% of the total populations. In addition, more than 300,000 people live in extreme poverty. That means they cannot access to a basic food basket. So this is due to different social and economic situations that affect us. That is why in Las Tacuaras, as she said, a company that was formed in the 70s and with the poultry farms, but quickly goes to the industrialization of eggs. Today is walking with increasing firm steps towards sustainability. So this sustainable management allows us today to implement innovative initiatives and procedures, and made us being one of the few industries in Paraguay that has the CSRs as the DNA of the company. The sustainable management is possible thanks to the strong commitment of the senior management, and that allows us to be leaders in several initiatives in our country today. So we do things thanks to the implementation of tools like shared value theory, Michael Porter, the ISO 26000, and of course the SDG. So in search of initiatives that complied with the alignments of the company and these tools, and especially with the SDG #1, no poverty, we create the micro-franchise Nutrihuevos. So these programs aims to improve the quality of life of women, leaders of the home, through entrepreneurships to provide them stability for the progress of their family. The entrepreneurship basically consists in the sale of the product of Las Tacuaras, in this case the eggs under the brand Nutrihuevos. We start this program with 153 women who are in the line poverty, and they access through a microcredit with a differentiated price that allows them to access to the product and enter to the market. So the interesting thing is that this program generates an income for the company that facilitates and expands the capacities at the local level. As you can see there, the investment in just 3 years has increased almost 15%, and the economic results were triple. So also we have in the 3 years it has surpassed all our expectations, and we also have our projection for up to 8 years. So that's allow us to generate more opportunities and reach more people. So these numbers are the ones that allow us to tell stories like Marcela Parras. She is a single mother who takes care of her mother and daughter. So she lost her job at the age of 49. So in our country, it's too difficult to find a job at that age if you don't have a degree or something like that. So she knew about the program through a foundation in Paraguay that grants microcredit to people in poverty line. So she accessed to the program selling only 15% of eggs per week. So now we are proud to say that Marcela is selling more than 1,600 dozens of eggs per week. In addition to this, she now is replicating the same program in the local area that she lives, to people who are in the same situation that she was. So stories like this inspire us to and make our proposal in the company to redefine. And this proposal now is, with each egg, we contribute to a better world. So for this year, 77 women are still active in the program. 12 become wholesalers. That means they are selling more than 500 dozens per week. And for the 153 women who started with the program, just 6 remain on the poverty line. That's benefiting more than 150 families. So that's just in the 3 years of implementation. So we're continuing to work developing the quality of women through workshops on entrepreneurship and product management, because for us it's very important, because in our company we handle high quality standards, and that is why, as you can see, they are also training in food health, in food quality and safety. Our operation is completely systematized. This allows us to quantify our growth as well as make it more transparent. So the CSR department verifies and makes every 15 days a report, and that allows us to improve in that program. So as a company, we are really committed with this proposal, and we seek to redefine and establish platforms so that more people can generate their own income. So that is the form that we are working with SDG number 1. Especially we are working with all the SDG, but the ones that I want to tell you is that because Marcela is one of the most of the people that we have in our company that really successful with the program. So that's the way now we are make our business model to generate economic value for the organization, but also contribute to the world by reducing poverty and generating opportunities. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup, José.
Thank you, José.
Merci beaucoup. Je crois que c'est
Thank you very much. I think it was clear the way you have taken hold of SDG number 1. As I said, you have to go further, of course, to see on which ones you may have a contribution, but it is really self-explanatory, the example that you have chosen. We are now going to move from the eggs to chocolate. A bit like Easter, isn't it? So let's go from eggs to chocolate. Santiago Peralta, you are the founder of a company called Pacari Chocolat. I didn't know Pacari's chocolate before I prepared, but do you know that Pacari Chocolate is a company that has won many prizes on organic chocolate, is the best organic chocolate in the world. I'm very happy to have been able to meet Santiago, and the Pacari company has made an analysis, a rather comprehensive analysis, on all the SDGs, how they could contribute to all the SDGs. So I read a matrix that if you, in the audience, if you'd like to have it, I'll be very happy to communicate it to you. But this table shows that all the SDGs have been analyzed, and the company has looked for each to which contribution they could have to each of these SDGs. So this analysis table is very good and very interesting. And what I'm going to ask you, Santiago, now is what gave you the idea of making this analysis on all the SDGs? How did you go about it, and why?
Okay, thanks for being here and to asking some interesting questions. Well, basically, we start with a small idea that was with my girlfriend at the time. So be aware, that was 17 years ago. With the idea of how we can do something that is not going to be, we're not going to be, having regret 30 years later. We were, almost getting married and stuff like that, and it is what we are going to do with only life, our only shot. And that was a little bit the result. So we wanted to have something sustainable in many, many ways. We wanted to have something sustainable with a, natural sustainable. Everything we do is organic. Everything we do is not sustainable if the farmers are not well paid. I remember passing through Belgium and someone was selling a box of truffles for 100 euros. And when I went back to Ecuador, I saw someone selling the cacao from $1. That's 130 times less, the same kilo. What is wrong in this equation? So we were thinking on that, and that's why we arrived to Pacari, basically, 17 years later. Anyway, so I don't know if we can see a video. We will, sorry, I prefer to just show you a tiny video so you see what is our daily work, basically, and what we do daily. So this is our logo. It's 5,000 years old, and Pacari means the dawn or nature. Well, this is Ecuador. It's fun to see, but this country has 70% of the world genetic bank of cacao. It's the motherland of cacao. And we have Andes, we have the Galapagos Islands, we have jungle, like, big rainforest. This is the Amazon. Okay. Looks that you have some sound, but if you can go loud the sound, I can tell. So basically, a lot of the food we have now at the moment is coming from the Amazon. So you have chilies coming from there. Thanks. You have cacao coming from there. Potatoes is coming from there. Corn is coming from there. All the beans, black beans, etc. So basically, here you see we have these big trees, which are maybe 100 years old. And we have all these farmers gathering together to get the cacao in the crop time. They come from the cities, they meeting each other. And everything is taken out by hand. It's nothing, there is no machine over there or something to do it. And so basically all the chocolate we produce has human cells basically there. This is Nacho, which is bringing some fresh cacao to our one of the communities we work with. We start with 20 families here. Right now is 400. The cacao is going to be fermented, so we put the cacao in wood boxes, like you do wine, etc. Then you ferment, and later on, the other very important thing is to dry the cacao. And after drying the cacao, cleaning the cacao, we take this cacao to 3,000 meters high above the sea level in the Andes, where I do live, in Quito. And we start cleaning the cacao basically bean by bean. I think we are the only crazy ones doing that. The rest of the industry is processing everything, but we are treating food as food. Well, where we process the cacao at the moment, we're tempering and going to put it in molds. And those are the bars. I hope you had the luck to try one. Well, we put all the logo, all the traceability. We put numbers, so we know exactly which cacao farmers. That's my wife, sorry, and that's my son Martin, and she's the owner. I'm just working there. And there are some places in the world where we have this. As far as I know, it's somewhere in Holland and Paris and. I don't know, we are in first class Emirates Airlines, we are in El Corte Inglés in Spain, we're in Fortune and Masons in London, we're in a few places in the world where we are. This is New York, we are in Quito, we are in Buenos Aires, we're in South. We pretend to be basically the voice of South. And at the moment, we have been winning 5-6 years the best chocolate in the world, and we have like 250 awards. It's the most awarded chocolate in history. basically, number 2 in the world is a French friend who's got 25 awards. But anyway, nothing against the French. But it's again, and if you compare that, the reality is that can you imagine someone in Bordeaux exporting the grapes to Ecuador to be produced or be changed into wine? You get it? Well, it's the same with cacao. As logical, we have the raw materials. We should be able to produce the best chocolate. And that's a fact. We are there. We control the material, the raw materials, the processing, etc., etc. Anyway, so basically, as we said, we wanted just to do the best as possible in this only shot called life. And first of all, we start organic farming since nothing. Right now we have 3,500 families. Is a lot of people. Basically, only in cacao is 20,000 people depending on us. And we start paying the double. You know, in Guayaquil, in the port, people were thinking that we were drug dealers or something. Because just someone trying to launder money is going to pay the double. But the thing, when you pay the double, the farmers are really motivated to make the effort. So the problem is, well, if someone, I don't know, in Belgium or in France or whatever, they're selling for €100 and the price of a kilo is €1, let's pay 3. Why not? Why are we so greedy? So let's pay the 3. So we start paying the 3. No one understands that. But the quality starts to go up and up and up. And 2 or 3 years later, we find out with the best cacao ever. And then we start making chocolate, and we start winning all these awards. So you only get what you give. That's a fact. That's a karma thing. That's a logical thing. Anyway, so we end up with all these connections with, we start, I don't know if you go, I'm sorry, I'm the one in charge, sorry. Okay, first of all, we wanted to show Ecuador like a mega biodiverse country. It's a country that have more birds than whole Europe. Just one square, I don't have a light, but anyway, in the Amazon, 1 kilometer have more life than whole Europe. So this again, and it's this is not mine, this is all yours. This is the world heritage of life. So right now we are working with the WWF. We are the only chocolate certified with WWF, and we have a co-branding with WWF, you know, the panda people. And I don't know if you see, but in the north you have a very rainy area. Later on the red parts are deserts. So you have very wet area and very dry area. So we start doing fine chocolate for every area. So the concept of terroir, that you are very familiar, we start putting that into chocolate. And you have no idea the difference of different flavors. It's amazing. Okay, so by example, the first one is coming for a very rainy area. It's number 3 in the world at the moment. The Manabí is from the desert. Los Rios is something in the middle. Raw 70 is a chocolate that we developed, our own techniques, and this is the most awarded chocolate in history. Really, really special. Yesterday we had the chance to try. And Piura, this is chocolate, this is a world winner 2013 from Peru. That's again, for the first time in history, we start making chocolate not only from Ecuador, but from other side, from other place called, well, Peru. So we are buying right now cacao beans from Ecuador, Colombia, and Peru. And we are certified B Corp. I don't know if you're familiar with this, but we are kosher. We are the only chocolate in the world biodynamic certified. The Meta, we are the only ones. It's, just to tell you these tiny senses, it's 8 years of work behind. Well, for sure, we are vegan. None of our products have dairy. I was vegetarian back in Portugal in 1995. where the word vegan don't even exist at the time. So I was an extremist at the time. So 3 years without eating meat in Portugal at the time was like, you are crazy. But anyway, and it was because cows produce 60% of the world greenhouse effect, the methane. That's why we don't do anything with dairy. And I'm trying not to eat animals normally. But when yesterday they offered me something for free, I tried it. It was nice. Anyway, so I'm not a fundamentalist anymore. But at least whatever we sell is dairy-free. Also, we are soy-free. We were the first chocolate in the world without using sunflower lecithin. Soy at the moment have a gene of a pig. The soy we're using. So I didn't want to have nothing to do with that. So we were the first ones 10 years ago to start using sunflower lecithin in the very old industry. Sorry, $300 billion. No, $300 billion industry a year. That's the chocolate industry. We were the first ones because we really care, Anyway, so the awards, I don't want to talk longer from that, but we are quite happy with that. And also, we wanted not only to show that we had this fantastic plain cacao, fine flavor cacao, but we wanted to talk, for example, with salt from Cusco. The lemongrass is unbelievable. Lemongrass is the most important flavor on earth. With all my respect, is not milk. Lemongrass is common for all the people that produce cacao. 3 billion people consider my flavor. If you go to Paraguay, if you go to Brazil, if you go to India, if you go to Africa, this is the flavor from the tropics that produce the cacao. Finally, we're giving a voice for these people, these flavors, because this looks that we don't exist. Okay? Andean blueberries. Again, it's just a microclimate that produces that. There is this blueberry that is growing and in wild 4,000 meters above the sea level. Amazing. This chile is the Mapuche merquén, basically, which is and it's called chile because this is a flavor from Chile, very down there. And again, we wanted. By example, the work with these ladies, these are our providers. This is one of the projects we did with the German Agency of Cooperation, the GTZ at the time. And it's about the golden berries. It's a fruit called physalis, as physalis, I think, physalis peruviana. And we start doing this, drying the physalis because these ladies wanted to sell the fruits, but they were spoiled at the time. So the only way, people come and buy from nothing, because they know that these are going to be rotten soon. So we basically put a dryer and donate a dryer. It's not my dryer anymore. So they dry the fruits and they have a long-term fruit. So when you dry the fruits, you can sell it anytime. Okay, so that was, we start again with, 20 ladies. Right now is 120 ladies. Only ladies working with that. I think we need to have another. Sorry, we have like 2 presentations in the same time. Okay, so this is part of the fruits we have at the moment. This is one of the bars we have with golden berries. You know physalis, I think. There's a lot of different names. Okay. Okay, so all these social projects, again, are not social projects. How we can have cacao in the future if the farmers are going to leave? How we can have a company? How we can produce chocolate? I all the time saying that we are the bad people that kills with hunger. We are the ones that kills with hunger the people which is feeding us. You get it? This is my sentence, one of my favorites, but it's true. It's sadly true. We have a flashlight project. The solar, batteries. People spending $10 in batteries per month because they don't have access to electricity. So we have been donating like 5,000 flashlights, which are solar flashlights. So just this project is saving tons of poison, tons of batteries, because the batteries are going to end up in the river or whatever. And they don't need to buy it anymore. again, we are saving like $500,000 a year, and this project is already 6 years. $3 million in batteries just because we have solar flashlights. And again, this is money which is not from in my pockets, it's in the pockets of the farmers. Also, we have this free water project. We're just donating, again, $50 filter. And with this $50 filter, you can use any water, basically. You just filter the water and you can drink it. Normally, a family spends $20 a month in water. They don't need to spend in that anymore. You know, just need to take the water, rainwater, whatever, and pass through the filter, and that's it. We have also, we had an earthquake like 2 years ago, and we started seeing, I mean, we wanted to fix the problem with all our farmers. I mean, basically, 800 of our farmers lost their houses. But we knew we didn't have the money to rebuild the houses. The thing we did is we went and we make a school so they can rebuild the houses with good practices. So if there is another earthquake, they don't lose the house anymore. So we basically, it's 50 farmers. Right now, they know they're really basically like engineers. And in Ecuador, everybody do their own home. You don't need, here's more structure, everything. And right now, they can build themselves. And if there is an earthquake, these houses will survive. Also, we are in this agritourism thing that we started. We have nothing to do with tourism, but we know that if people go and see how people is working and living in the woods and recollecting fruits and vegetables from the jungle, people will understand that we can have a better life if we can be more close to the farmers and to nature. Okay, well, basically, this is basically our relationship. Finally, the farmers have a connection with you, and what we want is that you have connection with the farmer. We want to be a little bit the bridge between you and them, and I think that's the problem in society. I think we're just far away from each other. We don't understand each other. We are a little bit living our own world. At the time we started realizing and getting connected to the effort of these people, which is working 36 degrees with 100% humidity, bringing the cacao so you can enjoy a chocolate. And as soon as you realize that 90% of the world cacao is coming from people that earns 20 euros per family per month, then you start to think differently. Thank you very much.
Merci beaucoup, Santiago.
Thank you very much, Santiago. Thank you. That was really fascinating. We've seen through the example of your business how a business that focuses on chocolate production, cocoa production, asked itself, well, I'm not just a place where cocoa is produced and for a money-making machine. The business can also be a place where you can have a social impact. You can think about areas that might be very far removed from what you do. You mentioned tourism, for example. This is what the SDGs encourage us to do. The idea is to say, instead of just being a place for redistributing profit, goods and services, how can I also have a social impact on my staff, on society? Because businesses actually basically take advantage of the infrastructures, a level of education. It sort of can draw on all these things that society provides them with. And businesses also have positive externalities on this company. So now go over to our last speaker, Mr. Dieter Brunner. Mr. Dieter Brunner has a business that's called Iskrameco, which is based in Slovenia. This business was created just after the Second World War in 1945, and it provides intelligent electric solutions, intelligent electric meters, and quite, there's an SDG, which is number 7, which focuses on electricity power, clean power production. And basically, you do not focus on SDG 7. I've read what was written about your company, and I realized that you'd made a very thorough analysis of all your contributions to the SDGs on number 1, poverty, number 3, on health, on industry, 11 on sustainable cities, climate change, and this famous 17th SDG on partnership and the ways of implementing Agenda 2030. Can you tell us how were you made aware of this Agenda 2030, and what brought you to actually make this analysis on the Iskrameco's contribution on the various SDGs as defined by the international community?
Thank you very much for this interesting question, and thank you for having me here. It's an honor for me, and I'm just see that I'm a part of a minority. First of all, I'm pretty old. Most are here youngsters, as I see, which I think is the right sign. Second is, most of them are female. And third, I have a very difficult, a complex topic. It's not so much fun like from my friends here before talking about eggs or chocolate, where everybody knows what it is and everybody knows how it tastes. We're talking about electronic industry, about a lot of things which you all use in your daily life, but nobody thinks about it. And as you just said, be participating on a lot of SDGs, not because he said we have to do this. We came from a total different stream onto there. And I think it's an important stream into the industry, into the electronic industry, which is at the beginning of all of this for the moment. I say we are producing electric meters, smart meters. Who of you know what this is? Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. You can be sure each of your home, of your flat, etc., has a meter at home. Here in France, it's called Linky. There's a Linky project. Maybe you have seen it in the news, in the TV. It's a little green box which tells you at the end what you have to pay to Enedis, ERDF before EDF, right? And this little green box is a very complex box. There is a lot of electronics in, there's a lot of software in, there is hardware, mechanics, metal, etc. And when we have been discussing in the year 2008, 9, 10 here in France with ERDF, the daughter company of EDF at that time, which has been renamed now in Enedis and is a sponsor, as I can see. That's great. We went through and said, if we have to change here 35 million meters, compteurs, as the French would say, 35 million meters. And you need to think about that each of those meters have an own consumption. So they use some energy to measure what you use, right? And this energy is 2 watts. Then you have 35 million times 2 watts, makes 70 million watt, which you use over the year, put it into kilowatt hours, and you need just a power plant to run your meters, to measure your energy. So that was the start of when we thought into how can we be part of this European 2020, where we should reduce the energy consumption by 20%, the CO2 by 20%, etc. So this was at the very beginning when we started to really look into this and look into electronic component. So when you say, what has a meter to do with the European 2020? It's all about reduce your consumption. Reduce your consumption not because you get a new modern meter. Reduce your consumption because there you have the ability to create awareness, that you're aware what are you using and what are your behaviors and which way are you using it. With the old way of measuring it, you got once per month, once per quarter, maybe once per year an invoice, and you all have been upset about the level of the invoice, right? I see this lady know where I'm talking from. Yes, especially if you have daughters at home like me, then you know what's the energy consumption. Everybody's been upset, but it's in the history. You can't change. You don't know when did you really use, what can you change to make it happen. And that's why smart metering is a substantial, a vital element of European 2020 goals. And this is also why France, next to all the other countries in Europe, are rolling out smart meters. But when you look into a smart meter, then you see that within the electronic industry, and this is not only smart meters, it's everything which has electronics in it. Is it your MP3 player? Is it your mobile phone? These things. Is it your TV set, your set-top box? Every those equipment has electronic components in. As a PCB, a printed circuit board with a lot of components. And when you look to all those things, then you see we have, in this electronic industry, we have 5 major issues. One of the issues are labor standards. What has labor standards to do with electronics? Who of you remember, a few years ago, there have been one of these producers of these nice smartphones on TV, because they showed that people working in the factory in China jumping from the roof because they can't stand anymore the way of working. They had to work 7 days, 12 hours a day. Now we can say, okay, 7 days, 12 hours, that's a lot, but our grandparents also had to do the same. But they have been standing for 12 hours without a break, not allowed to talk to each other, and not allowed to drink or eat in these 12 hours. So now you can think about. And this is just one example of labor standards. And this is one of the things which you have to be aware if you buy such a nice mobile phone, such equipment, that you need to think about where it has produced, under which conditions, where it comes from. Labor standards. I think looking here in France, we all know the unions, they take care about that all the standards are good. Basically Europe is almost not a real problem on this. But most of the electronic components are not produced in Europe. They're coming from Far East, they're coming from US, they're coming from Africa. So, labor standards. Conflict materials. What the heck is conflict materials? Conflict materials is materials which are mined in Africa, in other parts of the world. Special attention is taken into Congo when you see how people do mining for minerals, which are used later on to produce electronic components, and they are mining under very strange conditions, and there are soldiers watching them, and if they don't do their work, then they get punished. Things like this. And this is daily life. This is not something, wow, out of the blue. This is daily life. So this conflict materials, there's materials scarcity. Material scarcity. Sounds nice. There's a list from the UN and from the European Union which publishes every year how many minerals are on the verge to extinction, means not available on a virgin element anymore, right? We all talk about biodiversity, we talk about that birds dying out, insects, etc. We have the same on minerals. If you look on one metal which is called copper, I think everybody knows copper, huh? Right? No? Can I have any sign here? No? Copper? Yes, copper, this is this reddish material.
Okay.
Okay, a cuivre.
Cuivre.
Okay, this is copper. Huh? And you know that in everything which we produce on electronic, electric, on your household, on the cables and everything, you have this metal in. This is the vital part on it. Now we're talking about e-mobility, the new big thing, right? It uses a lot of copper. But if we use copper at the same speed as we have used it last year, we will have virgin copper available for 30 years, and then it's gone. Can you imagine? 30 years? It's not a long time, right? Or most of us will see it, I hope. 30 years. Yeah, so this is another part of it. And then, last but not least, there is e-waste, electronic waste. Because what are you doing after 3-4 years with this nice mobile phone? Have you ever thought about? Some of you put it at home in a drawer and leave it there for the next 10 years. Some put it in the dustbin. Some hopefully bring it to the right place where it should get recycled, right? But I think everybody has seen the pictures on TVs that a lot of this material goes via ship to Africa on a big pile where poor people, which you showed in your video, are burning the stuff, trying to get some metal pieces out of it which they can sell again. And by this burning, they get a lot of poison into the air, and those people will not live for the next 20 years or so, right? So this is always in the electronic industry. This is always in the things you're using in here on your daily life. You use at home to cook, to bake, to have lights, etc. But nobody is thinking about it. These are the parts when we started looking into sustainability some 7, 8, 9 years ago and discussing about what can we do, and when we uncovered all those things. And I said to my team, I said, guys, I don't like to be on a TV like to see that people who produce something for us are jumping from the roof because the conditions are the worst. And I don't like to show my kids that say, look, this mining, this is what they produce for us, right? So let's start to look into, let's start to change. And you have to understand that this is a huge swing in the industry, right? You all see here a lot of laptops in front of you, right? So all those things are produced this way. So let's make a change. And how to create a change is you create the awareness among us, among the company, among the people working there, that this is something which we need to think about. This is something which is very, very important. We started internal. We started with the management team because we always say if the top doesn't support it, it won't get down, right? This is the leading role which you have, the role model which you should show, you know. And by addressing this and creating the awareness, etc., we had a lot of people looking at us like saying, what do you think? Why should we do this? And what's in for us? And doesn't make this product more expensive, and then we will sell less. And you know, all those things you have to overcome. You have to get into the people's mind that, well, this is a paradigm shift. This is something which we need to start to look into, to change things, and that we also need to educate all the others. Talk about it at home, talk about with your friends, talk about with the community, talk about with other companies on it. So to create the awareness. We started internally, we started on a discussion with the customer. One of the next countries, the Netherlands, 2009-10, they started a project called Fair Phone. Fair Phone, which means such a phone produced in a different way. You can exchange the battery pack, you can exchange the display, you can upgrade it on a modular way, and it's produced locally, and it's produced to fair conditions to everybody. With this fair concept, we've been talking with our customers, which are DSOs, like ERDF in Netherlands, which came up with the idea, okay, when we go and change the whole population of meters into smart meters, can we go and create a fair smart meter? And this has been basically the start of that project, and we have been working on this a long time to go through to each and everything. Started to talk to customers, to suppliers. You know, you go back to the supplier and say, hey gentlemen, where do you get this little piece called capacitor, called resistor, called microprocessor. Where do you get it from? What material is in there? What is it used? Where does this material come from? And you get blank eyes, you know, and you say, I don't know, right? So you start to create the things, and they start to need to go to their suppliers and to their suppliers to start to collect data. And this has been one of the big projects which we did, to collect all the data, to understand at the end, what is our meter comprising for? What kind of material do we have inside? How many of them? How big is it? And what could we change? What could we save? How could we do things different? I think this has been a big thing. And we still have, I think we see a lot of customers which say, yeah, that's a great thing. Because of that, looking at DSOs, which is the energy provider for all of us, most of them, they don't have a real good picture in front of the society, right? Most of them, they're stealing our money for the energy, they're polluting the environment with their power generation, etc., right? So we can help you to change this picture, because we are going to prepare fair, smart meters. We take the sustainability approach, we adhere these SDG goals, we work actively on it. I will not say we are the greatest, we are the heroes. We started to work on it, and we have seen that if you start to turn, it's like you're on a beach. You take a stone from the beach, what happens? Everybody has been on the beach, right? What happens is that you see 100 animals just running away, right? And this is the same in this aspect. You know, you turn one stone, you say, that's it, and then you see 100 underlying other issues, right? And then you go step by step deeper. And one of the things which we achieved here is a fully transparent supply chain, so that we know now what kind of material we have, where it does come from, and we can care about that they adhere labor standards, that we adhere conflict materials, and we can start working on changing material which is not available in the future anymore, etc. And there's another big thing on the horizon. When you look into the e-mobility, you see that we are using now lithium-ion batteries, right? Look where the lithium comes from. Atacama Desert in Chile, right? And they're using the groundwater, pumping up groundwater to get lithium out, right? We all believe now in Europe, e-mobility is the solution to the mobility, right? But when you look into the details, then you see that there are a lot of more underlying issues which we need to think about. So think broad. So one of the goals we had, next to that, we said, okay, we have to reduce waste, we have to reduce the CO2 footprint from us, we have to reduce the use of water, electricity, compressed air, etc. The other part has been, we would like to educate our partners, our suppliers, our customers. We have done a lot of workshops. We have been in a group of other companies with other industries to help them to understand, to start to think about, to find a way, what can we do? And it's imagine, you start to talk about, and everybody has an idea, and everybody knows something. And if you put everything together and start to get things done, then it starts to work. What I always say is that the sustainability has to go into the genes of our people, into the genes of the societies, that you start to think about, that you are aware, that you're aware about the beautiful nature which you showed, all the things, the poor families, the things, that it is a part of us, it's a part of society. Start, help changing. And I think that's why I said here, a minority, I see all the young people here, it's up on you. Because we only can raise flags and try to do things. You are the generation who can really make a change, who can really help to do those things. Yeah, so we did a lot of these things. At the end, we came up with a fair smart meter, a product which is lighter, smaller, more energy efficient, use less energy to measure, and it's a platform which is modular. Our meter has to live for 20 years, has to be certified, has to be correct for 20 years. So it's not like a mobile phone which you threw away after a few years, right? This thing has to live for 20 years, and it has to be recyclable. So we designed it in a way that when you get back, you know exactly what material, and you don't mix up material. You know, when you think about plastic recycling, most of the plastic you can't recycle because you mix a lot of plastics together to make a bottle or things like this. So if you, at the beginning of the design phase, think about all those steps, then you can do something that in 20 years we can recycle those stuff and regain the material which we have in there. There's a lot of things which we have done at that level in this way. I think we also got awards for this. And I think this is also one of the reasons why the organizations have been aware that we as Iskrameco, we have done something. And we feel us as a front runner in the electronic industry. And there are many, much bigger companies than us, 10 times, 20 times, 100 times bigger than us, which consult us and say, what did you do and how did you do this and why did you do? And this is a good start. This is a good sign for us. At the end, I have to say, it's education, what we need to do. We have to educate each other on those things. The other thing is that we also should get some incentives, right? You said $1 per beans versus $3, which is not a big difference, right? But it makes a hell of a lot of difference to the families you're paying, right? And it's the same on electronics, right? Yes, of course, you can buy cheaper stuff and cheaper stuff and cheaper stuff, but you also can pay something for get something fair, so that the people who produced it are fairly treated, you know, so that the people who produce stuff have a possibility to educate their children and get something to live, and that we do not pollute our environment with all those stuff. I think that's the thing, and at the end, I was looking into the politics and the policy makers that they start to drive this much more, being it a CO2 tax, which should be better distributed, better done on this way, and also support companies who do something in a positive way, and not just looking, when I look into European Union, that on each and every European bid, the ones who are lowest get the award, right? But the ones who are lowest are most of the time not the ones who are really sustainable with their company, nor with their way of doing things. So there's a lot of things to do, and we really appreciate all of you starting to think about it and help and drive and address it with your families, friends in your companies. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup. Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Brunner. Je retiens de votre intervention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Brunner. What I take away from your presentation is many things, but what I want to highlight is what you said about educating. Educating both inside your company and the outside world, or the whole production chain, which is very important. We are going to open a session, a Q&A session. So I'll let you think of the questions you'd like to ask our three panel members. But before that, while you think about it, I'm going to give you some observations and figures, key figures, which are rather interesting and will illustrate what Mr. Brunner has just said. Producing in completely responsible conditions and thinking about the impact has a cost. But not doing it also has a cost. Not going into these considerations, continuing to do business as usual, has a cost. Now, the first report which looked into that was the Stern report, I believe, mid-2004, tried to measure the cost of inaction against the cost of action, and not doing and continuing to pollute and not considering human rights has a social cost that is much higher than the investments required to impulse the transition towards more resilient and more responsible models. Was the first thing I wanted to tell you. And the second thing, while you're still thinking about your questions, I really want you to ask questions. So do think deeply about it. Now, the second thing I'd like to say is that sharing with you the assessment made on business opportunities that make up the SDGs and the opportunities of job creation. I don't have the exact reference in mind, but you can see that in the report. The figure that comes out is that $12,000 billion, so $12,000 billion that are business opportunities to fulfill the SDGs. These could generate this amount of money. And to fulfill the SDGs, we could create 280 million potential jobs. And these are the two key figures I wanted to share with you, which I included in the report I was mentioning in my introduction. Sorry, I don't have the reference in mind of the company, the firm who conducted that assessment, but it's a very serious firm. So the cost of inaction is above the cost of action, but moving towards transition do open up opportunities in terms of turnover and job creation. Now, I'm going to look at the audience. Do you have any question to ask our three panel members? We have about 20 minutes left, so we have two series of questions. We can take like three first, they will each answer, and then we'll come back to you for three more. I got the two hands raised here. Okay, perfect. Good morning. I have a question for all three of you. My question is, do you try to include your B2B partners in your CSR approach and in making sure that they help you reach your sustainable development objectives? And if you do, how do you do that? I'm going to note them down as well. Since it's a question for all three of them, it'd be easier that you each give an answer. So we'll do that way. Okay, otherwise we're going to not answer each of the questions. So who'd like to start? How do you integrate your B2B partners in your CSR policies and fulfillment of your SDGs?
In terms of our industry, we cooperate with our customers. One of the examples is Netherlands, where we have a group of 4 utilities, which together we designed and created this fair meter approach. We went to the whole thing together. They put goals for us, which they are measuring. We have a yearly goal which we have to set, which is at the end penalized. So we have to be clean and clear, follow up those things, and it's a cooperation together. On the same time, we integrate our suppliers and we discuss with them how to move away to other components, what else can we do. We try things on the steel which we use internally, so that we see can we increase, this is a strange thing, can we increase the amount of recycled steel. And also we do trials with the housing, which is basically comprising a very special plastics, right, where we see, can we use recycled plastics and in which way, in which form, and there are the supplier of the material, the company which is molding, so there's a whole chain in there which we work together. Because on your own, you can't do anything. The whole thing is partnership at the end, but someone needs to drive. This is everywhere the same.
Yeah, yes, well, what we're trying to do is seeing this like a holistic thing. Basically, our distributors, everybody in each country, we need to agree totally in our philosophy. I mean, the people who works with Pacari is people that really are showing the story as well as I'm doing here with you. They're doing that, I don't know, in Edinburgh or in Dubai or in China or in Japan. I mean, it's the people that we work with, it's people that really have the same philosophy. And to be honest, we had people that was not in this we were not in the same direction, and you see people who's more into the business pure only. And these relationships with us just didn't work. So I think even for us, and because at the end, it's if you have the same mentality, you need to agree in these things. And basically, we see like it's Pacari, Ecuador, and the 42 countries that we are working to, that we export our chocolate, is people that really defending the same thing. I remember when we had the earthquake, in each country we had people raising options how we can help the farmers in Ecuador. And just then we found that we were really a family. When people in Spain were doing things, the people in Italy and the people in the UK and people in the States doing this exercise of how we can get money or how we can help the farmers that have lost the houses. And so that was for me like we have done our job, kind of. Yeah.
Merci beaucoup. José?
So our sustainable management is just work with our partners. In this case, with the micro-franchise Nutribos, we are working with foundations in Paraguay that grants microcredits to people who are in the poverty line. Also, with all the strategies that we use in the sustainable management, we are working with more than 20 partners that include the government. In this year we started to work in this program with the government to expand the program. So it's very important for us to work and have the relation with other partners that is aligned with our strategies to have successful in this program and or sustainable management.
Merci beaucoup. Alors, une autre question, monsieur.
Ouais, donc,
Another question. I'm working for the multiplayer international cooperation here in this region. So thank you for mentioning this multiplayer aspect in your introduction. My question is that in your strategies, have you worked with other players, NGOs, local authorities? Because we've talked a lot about what is happening within the companies. And then the second thing, it was mentioned on how you work with your suppliers, but I was wondering whether you have an action that is addressing inequality or climate change's causes abroad. Since SDGs are a global thing, how do you envisage the causes and impacts of your actions internationally? So a question is, do you work with other players than companies, with NGOs and local authorities, with the government? And in which framework do you work in this multiplayer dimension?
Okay. Well, in Ecuador, it's kind of easy. It's a tiny country, and to be honest, we are kind of leader in this chocolate revolution in Latin America. So people putting an eye on us, and I think not only an eye, but they hear us. And we have a lot of meetings with a lot of discussions with the people from the Ministry of Agriculture, because we really do believe that organic agriculture is the only way. And I don't know, it's the Ministry of Industry. How we can do politics and how we can create laws that are really putting an eye on these or certain issues. And I think it's very important. By example, we all the time with a friend from he's got another chocolate company called Ama Chocolate in Brazil. We are the two from South talking and preaching around what is this concept from tree to bar chocolate, or a little bit how we feel in South when is in the ICCO, for example, we had some meetings with people from the International Cacao Organization, and it's a little bit strange to see, because all these big money are coming to buy cacao, and they say, well, we are not going to pay nothing more. What we want is you better plant this tree that's going to produce the double, but I'm not going to pay nothing more. So it's good to say, hello guys, until your tree, your dream tree is going to be big, we're going to wait 10 years. Are we going to starve for hunger in these 10 years? What do you expect? So it's good to have a voice. And I think little by little, people start to get. I remember when fair trade, sorry, I need to say this one, and it's not against fair trade, is in favor of fairness. When we saw that fair trade is only 6% more from the how you call it, the stock exchange price, which is nothing, which is basically nothing. And with that, they changed the whole speech of added value at the origin, which is the speech of the World Bank back in the 80s. What is happening after 30 years of fair trade is just poverty stays in the same places and the money stays in the same pockets. The last 30 years, so the one generation has been destroyed by fair trade in cacao, as far as I know. So I don't see fairness in this thing at all. And we are raising the voice to say in media and say it with to government and the ICCO, whatever is the cacao organization, whatever. And when you raise the voice, people start to be more critical on that. Even fair trade right now is even changing the laws on what is fair trade. So I don't think it's fair enough. And so anyway, it's the collective way of seeing the project, any problem. It's the only way of seeing the problem. If I see, just like I'm from Ecuador and my problem is just the Ecuadorians, we need to understand, this is a word, and it's not only the government, it's all the governments. I have been talking with people from Colombia about the peace, cacao for peace in Colombia. Now they do need that. It's not the problem of Ecuador. I don't care. It's a human problem. It's my neighbor. And in Peru, the same thing. They need to put an alternative for production of coca. Well, I have nothing to do with coca. Well, we do have a problem called cocaine. And if we don't start facing that is our problem, it won't be solved. If we do think this is only my corner, and this is only no, this is a global problem. All the problems are global. My phone, I have a phone in Ecuador, it's a global problem. And the way of changing it is behaving there. So it's our problem. Sorry.
Thank you, Santiago. Let's take hope. Il n'y a plus que 10 minutes. On n'a plus que 10 minutes.
We only have 10 minutes left, so I'm going to take this question. I'm going to take that extremely short question. Maybe I may take all three, but we'll not take more than that, okay? So do ask your question.
EU-LAC Foundation. I wanted to first thank the three panelists for their very interesting presentations. And in fact, these three case studies were selected in a call that we made with InnovacionAL, and we selected 16 case studies. 3 more will be presented this afternoon in the panel on circular economy. And if you want to read more details, I have the publication here in a USB drive, or you can see it on our website as well. But I wanted also to ask a question, and it's the following. Do you see, or have you made like a cost-benefit analysis and determined whether your investment in these SDGs or in these initiatives to promote the SDGs has also led to an increase in sales or in profits? Or do you do it more out of, as Santiago said, as a philosophical thing that you seek fairness, but not necessarily to boost your bottom line, so to speak? Thank you.
Oui, alors j'aimerais souligner, j'ai complètement oublié de le faire, donc
I totally forgot to mention it. My deepest apologies. These three company managers have been selected as part of a cooperation project between Europe and South America, Latin America, sorry, by the EU-LAC Foundation, which is this leaflet. And there are many more best practices, many more companies that are particularly responsible, which have been highlighted in this cooperation process. So I invite you to look into more details into this cooperation. We keep your question, and we're going to ask the three questions, and then we're going to take them all in sequence. And I suggest that each of you answer one question. So this gentleman's question on costs and benefits of this approach, and you each choose a question would be kind of a word of conclusion.
Mr. Santiago, I'm so impressed by what you said before, all the things you did for the society. So it's a great thing for the society and for the environment, but what is the impact to your company? Is that you have more benefits or more disadvantages?
c'est la même question que monsieur. Monsieur.
So same question as before, perfect. Gentlemen.
From Zentrepreneur, based in Brussels. I have one question for Bacardi chocolate. I'm happy you mentioned the economic wealth distribution and the fair trade practices that really, how you say that, killed the small farmers. If you want to elaborate more on sustainable economics for small farmers, just meaning how to distribute a better wealth distribution. You gave the example of like a kilo of chocolate in Belgium, $100, and a kilo of chocolate in Ecuador, $1. Thank you.
Et la dernière question.
Okay, hello.
Last question.
Regarding the Latin American case, so if it's possible, I would like to hear the point of view of Mr. Jose Benitez and Mr. Santiago Peralta. And my question is that because there are very high rates of poverty and inequality in Latin America, but we don't see that many enterprises or companies that take into consideration the Sustainable Development Goals. How can we then motivate Latin American companies to do such thing? Thank you very much.
Merci beaucoup. On va commencer. On attend que la traduction en chuchotage finisse. Et je propose à Rosé de commencer.
So while we wait for the translation into Spanish to so José,
Rosé, you start to answer.
if you please start answering.
Okay, I will answer your question. So. So we have more advantage for this program because in 3 years we decreased 50% of the investment, and in 3 years too we have tripled our economic results. So that's as you can see in the presentation. So that is an advantage for the business and for the society too.
Merci, thank you.
Okay.
Santiago.
Okay, you asked many things. Okay. Well, thanks for asking. I'm happy that these things are creating questions, because what we want is really my idea to be here is to make you think, and that's already a result when you start asking questions. Well, first of all, the thing of seeing, I mean, if you see from the most greedy and capitalistic way, what we are doing of paying double, it's a matter of how we wouldn't be, if we haven't paying the double, we wouldn't be having such good quality cacao. Without that, we couldn't be winning best chocolate in the world. You see? So, of course, this benefits for us. We right now, to be from South and have the most awarded chocolate in history in only 7 years of awards is fantastic. And number two is we have 10 times more awards than number 2. It's fantastic. But besides that, we cannot live. I mean, we cannot have a business if the young people in the countryside are going to leave the countryside. We're not going to have food. That's a basic thing. If all these young guys are going, they're not going to see business in the countryside. They're going to go to Guayaquil, they're going to migrate to Quito, they're going to go to Spain or to the States. I mean, migration is a big problem for us. And the countryside are becoming deserts in terms of young people. And these young people is the ones which is going to do something different. So we have projects on that. We have these ways of, we need to convince somehow the father to give 10% of the land to the young guy, and he start producing more and more and more. And after the father starts to see that he's old, that the young guy can really take care of the whole land, and he basically retired. So we have a project working with that already 5 years. I don't think it's enough. Whatever we are paying now is not enough. Still not enough. We need to go, maybe we need to raise like 25% more to really have, future in the countryside. It's a lot of efforts, but again, for sure, we are benefiting on that. I'm very thankful for that. It's good to say, it's our aim that we all benefit. That's not bad. If you benefit for something good, you cannot be happier. But the idea is this: everyone wins. The problem is just one company winning. And that's the wrong thing. That's the wrong thing of seeing society. I think the good relationship between all us, the farmers, the distributors, the final consumer, knowing that they're going to have a fantastic product, and they are willing to pay. They're going to pay 50%, maybe double price for this, because they know it's something safe to eat. And they love the story, and they really hooked with the story. We all benefit. That's what I think.
Merci beaucoup, Santiago. Je vais donner la parole.
Thank you very much, Santiago, for a very last answer your question to Mr. Brenner, and then we'll have to let you go and have lunch.
I would just like to come back to the point Mr. Luis had, about bottom line. Yes, of course, at the end, if we save energy, we save CO2, we save water, etc., we may change away from, make leaner meters, leaner material. Yes, we should see it on the bottom line at the end. At the moment, it's an investment, but it's an investment into the future, and it's an investment into fair pricing. Because we think we have, at the moment, a competitive edge, not in money, but in values, which we can sell on B2B to our customers, to DSOs, etc., to show them that if they pay the same price to us, then they pay to our competitor. From us, they get a more fair product. So it's more fair in sense of what you're doing with cacao or with the eggs, right? But it all boils down at the end that we all have to face the fact that at most things which we are buying today, we don't pay the fair value. We don't pay what it really, the costs which it creates in the society, right? And I think this is something which we all need to start to be aware, with the drive of buying cheapest, and buying clothes for $5 somewhere, right? Where the people who do this in Asia cannot afford this from 1 month's salary, right? So I think we need to go back and pay our fair price for the food, for the equipment, for clothes, on everything. And I think we are far away from this. And I think at the end, we all have to decide if we would like to be part of the solution or part of the problem. Thank you.
Alors merci, moi je veux juste vous donner un mot de conclusion parce que c'est quelque chose d'assez important. J'ai lu ce matin que 11 000 étudiants de grandes écoles françaises...
I read this morning that 11 students from major studies say it's pointless going to on a bike if every day we go to work for a polluting company. Now, that's exactly that. That's the meaning of that. I think that they committed, these 11,000 students who are graduates from major business schools, they've decided not to sell their skills and intellectual capacity to companies that are not responsible. So maybe they'll be able to sell their brains to these companies, or all the companies on this panel, because the company is just not an economic object, but a social object, and SDGs will redefine objectives. Thank you very much.